The gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Bachus, recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Meyer, you described the proposed changes as incremental to the Federal Reserve.
Right.
Reading the Treasury proposal, what they say about it, they say this report proposes a number of major changes to the formal powers and duties of the Federal Reserve, including the addition of several new financial stability responsibilities. These proposals would put into effect the biggest changes to the Federal Reserve's authority in years or decades.
So I think you have to read the rest of the report and see whether you agree with that. I read the rest of the report, and I don't see that there is this vast new. Now, the administration possibly wants to look at this as a more sweeping set of proposals than perhaps it is.
Okay.
But, as Vice Chairman Cohn said, this is just not the case.
Okay. So actually you don't agree with their description of
Absolutely
their
not.
own plan. Okay. Let me ask the panelists, can you function as a systemic risk regulator of significant institutions without a robust examination and supervision authority? Can you do that? Anyway.
Impossible.
Impossible, yeah. Now,
I agree.
Yeah, I completely agree here that clearly part of this issue of being a systemic risk regulator is that you have to go in and know what's going on in the institutions that you are regulating. And so I think it's essential that this be part of the role. And I think clearly that there's already an element of this, a very strong element, in what the Federal Reserve does now through the bank holding companies.
Well, do you think the Federal Reserve had a robust supervision and examination of those institutions that failed, including AIG?
Well, certainly the Federal Reserve did not have this responsibility for AIG.
Well, they were a holding company, were they not?
Not a bank holding
Not
company.
a bank holding company.
Is that, how about Citi?
But they have people monitoring Citigroup. I was in New York. They have people monitoring Citigroup and New York, all from the New York Fed every day. Did they find anything at Citigroup? Nothing that they were willing to do anything about.
Mm-hmm. And I guess Wachovia was a bank holding company. Mm-hmm. Does the Fed, do you think the robust examination or supervision, or is that something that the OCC or the FDIC does on a day-to-day basis?
The OCC and the FDIC have never been responsible for consolidated supervision. They have no history of doing that. The FDIC does not have a supervisory staff that has any expertise in the complex banking situation of the institutions we're talking about. The OCC is already involved and was the bank supervisor of many of the institutions that have gotten into trouble. And in most of the large institutions, OCC is the bank supervisor and the Fed is the holding company supervisor, right. And they both have to work together.
Yeah, and they didn't do that in the last.
Well, I think, let's say neither distinguished themselves.
Okay, I agree. Do we need to determine the causes of the present financial crisis before we start legislating a fix? And have we done that?
It would be very helpful, in my view, to conduct a full and independent investigation into the cause of the financial crisis, similar to the Pecora committee investigations of the early 1930s.
How about Dr. Mischke? Do you agree?
Well, I think that clearly we do have to think more about these issues, and that particularly the rush to do regulatory reform is something that I have been concerned about. I do actually think, however, that the need for a resolution authority is absolutely critical. And so,
and I don't disagree.
And I think that one of my concerns has been that if we go down the route of worrying about the big picture and then don't do anything, that we actually are in a situation which is not only means that institutions can get in trouble, we can't do anything about it,
Right.
but also we're in a very weak position to get them to fix things because we have no ammunition.
And
That's
let me
serious.
say this, the Republican proposal is for an enhanced resolution, a bankruptcy-like proceeding. So, I mean, like for non-bank financial companies. So, I don't know, have y'all looked at the Republican proposal? Or have you,
I have.
Dr.?
Not in detail.
The gentleman's time has expired, and I'm going to encourage him to send each of these witnesses the Republican proposal. Unfortunately, there is another meeting